showing we don't need roads.
So I do want to say that I am truly excited about you coming to Chicago. And one of the big reasons is I love when people get the chance to find out something that I've known for a very long time, which is that you are absolutely one of the kindest and most giving celebrities that you can meet on this planet. You and I have known each other for a couple of years. And whenever people ask me who my favorite celebs are, I always name you and Tom Hanks. Like those are the two people I always say. So I'm sort of curious, who is the celebrity encounter that you've had in your life that maybe for better or for worse, most influenced and informed how you want to treat your fans when you meet them?
First off, you denigrate the great Tom Hanks when you put him and I in the same category. He is truly a celebrity. I'm the Clerks guy. That's it. I'll tell you, man, Jake, there was an interaction that I had with my father when I was a kid. I was about 6 years old, and my parents took us all to Disney World in Florida. So my dad took me out on, they got these little boats called the water mice. We zip around the lake. We come in, we get off the boat, we're walking up the dock toward the Polynesian village. That was the hotel. And there was Peter Marshall, who was the host then, when I was a kid, of Hollywood Squares. And when I was a kid, there was no cable, there was certainly no internet. There were like 3 channels. So if you were on TV, you were like the most famous person in the world. Didn't matter what you did. If you were in the news or if you were like a game show host, you were super famous. So Peter Marshall's walking towards us, and I see him and I'm like, that's Peter Marshall. And my dad's like holding my hand as we're walking. He's like, he goes, quiet. And so as we approach Peter Marshall, my dad goes, hey, Peter. And he goes, hey, how are you? And just keeps walking. And it blew my mind. I was like, you know Peter Marshall? And he's like, no, but I know his name. And I said, hello. And the fact that the dude said hello back and he wasn't like, or putting on airs or couldn't be bothered, made an impact. Years later, when I was that person, like, if somebody stops me, I got nothing but time for him. Even if they stop me to be like, look, Tusk sucked. I got nothing but time for him. At least they tried it. But generally, they don't. Generally, the people that stop you say incredibly wonderful things. My job is such that, like, I get to make pretend for a living, and that's fulfilling. But what I've found over the course of my career now is, like, the really fulfilling part is when you meet people who are like, let me tell you the story about how that dopey ass movie you made saved my life, stopped me from killing myself. Things like that ripple over the course of a nearly 30-year career. And you start to realize that, like, this ain't just for me. It ain't just me having fun making movies. People take these movies into their hearts. And for some people, those movies can be like a life raft. Same thing for me. Like, there are songs that I turn to when I'm sad, movies that I watch when I want to feel uplifted. Marvel is my lodestar. When I want to feel good about life, when I'm sad about things, I watch like Iron Man or something like that. So to have people say that to me, like, it means that I could stop and hear that all day. But it all traces back to that moment with, like, the first celebrity sighting I ever had. That dude was kind. Like, he didn't stop and have like a long conversation, but he acknowledged my dad, which to me, I was like, that's huge. A famous person said hello to my father and stuff. So, it makes a difference.
Not that I am anywhere even near in the realm of that, but even just here in Chicago, like, it's a point of mine. If anyone ever says anything, the thing I always do is ask them what their name is and say, hey, shake their hand, and whatever, fist bump now. But it's just that little thing of how I would want to be treated.
And think about it, like, TV is a completely different medium that is far more intimate. Like, I remember we were making Good Will Hunting. We were in Toronto on set, and that was the only time I got to meet and talk to Robin Williams. And so people outside the set were like, Mork, this is like 1996, and they were yelling Mork and stuff. And so, I was like, that must bug you, right? Like, people still yelling Mork. And he's going, it doesn't bug me at all. He's going, I love it. He's going, but that's the power of television. He's like, because you would assume that people would be like, Good Morning Vietnam, or whatever movie he'd been in fairly recently. He's going, but Mork came into their homes. Like, in order to go see me at a movie theater, they go out to a place and they're removed from it. But I came into their homes as Mork, and I'll forever be a part of their lives because of that. Same thing with you. It's like you come right into their home. So when they see you on the street, they're like, Jake, like you're part of the family. And it's a wonderful feeling. It's a byproduct of this job that I didn't expect. I didn't expect to become famous. I thought I'd be an indie filmmaker and nobody knows their names. But like I went walking with my friend Eric Carrasco. He's a writer on Supergirl, he's a writer on many things and stuff. So we were hiking Running Canyon. And, you know, over the course of the hour and a half walk, like literally 10 people like, hey, man, I love your stuff. Hey, man, oh, my God, it's great seeing you and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, is that like that every day? And I was like, yeah, man, it's generally a warm world where people like when they see me, they get a little bit happier and they get ready to tell you something positive. It's rarely somebody getting negative or heated or something like that.
I want to take that and run with it. And also that Robin Williams story, I love hearing because it reminds me of the opposite of the Bruce Willis story that you have told and Die Hard. So I love hearing the Robin Williams story. I had
those are two 80s icons, you know, two people that came
both on television.
Both on television, and you couldn't imagine two more different takes on the material. Like Sarah Michelle Gellar was in our Masters of the Universe show. So we were talking once, and she worked on a show with Robin Williams when he passed. She was on a show with him. And so I was like, you know, I met him one time. He was wonderful. What was he like? And she was like, the man gave everything to strangers. Like, she's like, we'd work a full day, then we'd leave, and outside there would be 50 people waiting. And he took the time for all of them and he turned it on, and he was the exact person they expected when they were like, it's Robin Williams. They didn't get like some kind of quiet, like, hey man, I'm not getting paid version of the guy. He gave it to him. And that's, you know, that takes a lot out of a person. In the case of Robin Williams, obviously it did take a bunch, but you know, they deserve nothing less. The people that like, you know, watch my stuff are essentially my bosses. I don't have a boss. I'm not employed. I'm kind of self-employed. So the people that like watch your stuff, that's your boss. And would you ever, if your boss came up to you and started engaging you in conversation, would you ever be like, hey man, I'm busy, like, don't talk to me? No, of course, you got nothing but time for the boss. Same thing here, same philosophy.
I love that. Now I won't burn up too much time telling this story, but the very first time I ever interviewed Robin Williams at a junket, I was 18 and I thought I was going to try to be Barbara Walters and be very serious. And he gave a very honest and genuine, you know, but not funny conversation. And by the end of it, I was kind of bummed that he wasn't funny. And I started to get up and, oh, Mr. Williams, nice to meet you. And he goes, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? And I go, well, like, I was kind of hoping for funny Robin Williams. He goes, well, you asked Siri. He goes, sit back there. He said, we're going to start his time back over. They started, he must have given me a 5-minute, like in-person stand-up comedy show because he saw this 18-year-old kid was disappointed. And he was like, you asked serious questions. I was trying to give you serious answers. And he goes, I didn't know you wanted me to be. And that's him.
Think about the versatility of that moment. He gave you what you want, what you needed, and then he gave you what you wanted as well. Like, that's a consummate entertainer.
Absolutely. Oh, he's a genius. I want to talk about people coming up to you because I have been to countless Q&As with you here in Chicago. I've seen you at Comic-Con in San Diego. I've been to tapings of Fat Man Beyond. It was Fat Man on Batman whenever I was there. And every time someone comes up to you, they say that I created this because I was inspired by your work, because I was inspired by your words. Of the 30 years that you've been hearing that, if you had to pick one, what's the one that you've heard where you went, holy shit, that exists because someone saw my stuff?
The one that I always like bump into the hardest is Jason Reitman, the director, son of Ivan Reitman, the director. Jason, you know, Ivan, of course, directed Ghostbusters. Jason has Ghostbusters Afterlife, which looks amazing.
It's very good.
You've seen it?
I have.
Everyone I've spoke to is just like,
you're going to weep. That last act, you and I are criers. You're going to cry.
That's what they said. They said, bring tissues. I was like, for crying or other things? They're like, both. So Jason Reitman, he was over one day and we were doing a podcast here at the house. And he was talking about how like Clerks was the movie that made him want to be a filmmaker, made him go like, I could do this. And I was like, you know, not Ghostbusters, like not growing up around your dad's movies. And he was like, my dad's movies were my dad's movies, but Clerks were like people my age sitting around talking about things that we all sat around and talked about. And he's like, that was an eye opener for me. And that made me think maybe I could do this too. That's killer to me. Like, because this is number one, he's a world-class filmmaker. Number two, like, you know, you live with a living example every day of what a filmmaker is. And like, that didn't capture his imagination. what we did, the simplified kind of bare bones version of a thing, sparked his imagination and brought a very strong director into the game. And now because of that guy, we're getting an amazing Ghostbusters movie. So I'm not taking responsibility, but like the trickle down is rewarding for
You should
me
at
as
least
well.
get an associate producer credit on this thing.
Exactly, man. Where's that?
Come on.
Some of that Reitman
Some
money.
of that Reitman money. Come on, Up in the Air Part 2, back up in the air. We can get
Exactly.
Clooney back up on the plane.
Exactly.
I want to talk about Clerk for a second. And I love how much this documentary shows how much you've changed as a filmmaker, as a person, as a man. What do you think the Kevin Smith who directed Clerks would say about the Kevin Smith today?
I think about that all the time because look, I'm 51 years old and I like to think that I'm, my own person and stuff, but I'm an entertainer and that means you're subject to the opinions of others. You don't do this job in a vacuum. You don't make things, put it on a shelf and be like, well, I'm satisfied. Ultimately, I just finished Clerks 3 and I've got my cut together and I love the movie to death and whatnot. But, it's Lionsgate didn't give me the money to make it, to be like, just make it and put it on your shelf and feel good about yourself. Like ultimately it has to go out there into the world. You have to share it with people. So I feel like, the movies kind of speak for who I am to a large degree and kind of make the statement. And then I'm lucky enough where, unlike most filmmakers, like David Fincher, he makes a movie and then he don't really tell you anything about it. His interviews are,
he doesn't really do junkets. Like I've done junkets since I was 18. I've never spoken to him. Man
of mystery, but that in that way, he lets the movie, his art, speak for itself. I'm the other guy. Once the movie's done, I come out and I'm like, hold on, let me tell you what Bruce Willis said and stuff like that. So, in terms of, God, I lost your question now. What was it in terms of Clerk?
Oh, just what the Kevin Smith who directed Clerks would say about who you've become.
So Kevin Smith is always so concerned with what people think about him and has been his entire professional career and stuff. But Kevin Smith personally is always so concerned with what Kevin Smith, who started this journey, would feel about him. Because the kid that started the journey just wanted to be a filmmaker. And he got to do that and his dreams came true. Good morning. And my wife just woke up. And
say hello.
Jake says hello. She just yelled hi, but she will come nowhere near the camera because she's got morning face in hair. So that kid, like uncharacteristically, made a choice that changed my life. Like I live a dream life where I get up and I'm like, what do I want to create today? And we go do things and
creation and destruction.
I live in Hollywood. It's crazy. Like all of this came from that kid's decision to make a movie. And because of that kid making that movie, I get to do all these other things beyond filmmaking, which, to be honest with you, in many ways can be more gratifying because, you could drop a podcast and an amazing podcast and, it's not like you spend a year doing it, you spend $20 million doing it, and then you got to wait for everybody to say whether it's good or bad. You just do it and then you do another one, then you do another one. You just keep producing and stuff like that. So there are many different formats that I could be a storyteller in now that are less heartbreaking potentially than filmmaking. Because at the end of the day, you make a movie you love. I loved Yoga Hosers and still absolutely do. When I brought it to the world was like, what are you, nuts? This is terrible. And, why subject oneself to that? Especially when I've done it a few times. Like it's not, I made a movie and then I made another and I've been doing it for 30 years. So at a certain point, it's like, well, maybe I should stop that because, the critics tell me I'm not good at it anyway, and concentrate on any number of the other things that people say that I'm good at. But that would be heartbreaking for that kid that started the journey. If I had to face that kid and that kid was like, wait a second, you're telling me in the future, we can make movies all the time, but you don't because you're worried about what somebody will say to you? You're worried because you'd rather go do a podcast? Like, are you kidding me? What happened to us? So because of that, I still make films, like more for the kid that started the journey. That kid he dreamed of this life, the life that I get to live. And the least I could do for him is do the only thing that he wanted to do. His tastes have changed over the years. He's been exposed to so many more mediums and art forms to self-express through that this version of that kid knows it ain't just about film. But that kid, all he wanted in life, Jake, was to be a filmmaker, was to make, and if I could go back and tell that kid, hey man, remember this goofy little black and white movie that means so much to you? Guess what? Like one day the Library of Congress puts it on the National Film Registry.
Chills. I just got freaking chills.
Your film is protected by the government. It's so important. So keep it up, kid. And I could never face that kid and be like, well, we stopped making movies because I had so many other things to do. It's like, no, do the discipline, get better at a thing. But even if people, like the whole world thinks you suck at something, you got to answer to yourself at the end of the day. And to know that I have the ability to do a thing. We're not talking about like a moonshot or curing cancer. We're talking about making a movie. I know I could do that. To not do it would be irresponsible to that kid that started me on this journey that I'm enjoying the hell out of.
If you could tell that kid there will one day be a Marvel film in which Stan Lee is sitting on a bus reading a script that you wrote, and that in theory puts Kevin Smith into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. First of all, what aspect of that sentence would have blown your, just the idea that there was a Marvel Cinematic Universe or that you knew Stan Lee?
I would have been stuck on like, wait, how do I meet Stan Lee? Like, wow, I make a movie? Like all of that seems kind of confounding and foreign, but it was such a wonderful moment. We were making Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, and we were in Louisiana, we were in New Orleans, and Captain Marvel came out, and it was like the weekend, I think, before we started shooting, or the first weekend of our shoot. And still, like, I broke off the time to go see it in the theater, and I dragged my wife with me, who barely goes to the Marvel movies at that point. And, I was like, you have to come to this. Number one, it's a girl superhero. So, you won't give me any crap about Iron Man, Spider-Man, Batman. Here's a woman. But number two, something special is going to happen because, I've been hip to it and whatnot. Yeah. And so when that moment happened, man, like my wife, who's never really impressed by anything I do anymore and stuff, was just like, wow. And I was in tears, man. I'm like, when we put Stan in Mallrats in 1995, people who knew comics knew who Stan was. The rest of the world didn't know who he was. So in 1995, I was like, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to an important figure in pop culture, Spider-Man's baby daddy, co-creator of many of your favorite heroes and stuff. And then years later, when he popped up in Captain Marvel, reading the Mallrats script, it's got my name on it. It almost felt like reciprocation, where he was like, kids, let me introduce you to a guy you probably never heard of who made a few movies many, many years ago. It was incredibly moving for me. And honestly, this is going to sound like BS, but like I would imagine most people understand by now, I don't really trade in BS. Having them reference me in a Marvel movie meant more to me than if I had won an Academy Award. Because in my world, like, that's currency, man. Like, an Oscar is just like that. Believe me, if they give me one, when I die, believe me, I'll happily take it. But like that means something very specifically in my business. But being referenced in a Marvel movie, in my world, my day-to-day, the guy who does Fat Man Beyond, the guy who has been referencing movies throughout his whole career, that was everything.
As weird as it sounds, it means you exist in that universe. It means that somewhere, if Iron Man is here, somewhere out there is Kevin Smith, and no one can take that away.
As long as I've known Spider-Man and Iron Man, it means that if I'm referenced in their world, they might possibly have heard my name as well.
They have to go see movies sometimes.
Exactly, man. You can't all be beating scrolls. Sometimes you actually have to kick back and enjoy a fine indie film from the 90s. But yeah, man, framed photo. That reference, and me and Jay getting our feet in the cement at the Chinese theater, which happened in 2019. Those moments, like, that's oddly enough, those are the highlights of my career. Like, where I'm like, it gets no better than this. And people are like, what about an Oscar? I'm like, that's for better people. But for me, it gets no better than this.
If I had to choose between the two, I'm right there with you, man. I'm going to cut you loose on this because I know you got a busy day. There's sort of a classification of a type of movie I call the movie before I die, which is like, I can't get hit by a bus until I see this movie. Like, and once I get it, then there's the next one. And sometimes it's 12 months, 18 months, 2 years out.
I live from Marvel movie to Marvel movie. So, whenever they announce it, I'm like, all right, I know I'm going to stay alive at least 6 more months.
Until I see it. For me right now, I got to see Keaton as Batman again. The idea, like, something I never thought. So for me, I think I got to stay alive till November of 2022 so I can see The Flash. What is your before I die movie?
Right now, I'm working off a few. Far From Home.
Are they back?
I think so. I mean, it's got to be one of the worst kept secrets in this business. I don't personally know anything from like my side where it's like I got an inside line.
Sure.
Not at all, man. Marvel is Marvel. They lock everything down. But how could it not be at this point?
My fear is if they're not,
they would have put a kibosh on it so long ago if there was no hope that Tobey Maguire was going to be there. Now, like Kevin Feige lately has been going, you know, fans may be disappointed that they don't get the exact Marvel movie they're hoping for and stuff, but I don't think that's him subtly communicating like no Toby, no Andrew. I think honestly, if that didn't exist, I think the internet probably manifested it by being like, it has to happen, it has to happen. And if I was Marvel, if I was Sony, I'd be like, let's pay whatever it costs to make it happen, because the audience literally just told us what they wanted. Like, so rarely as a storyteller do you get the upper hand knowing what the audience wants. You hope this is what the audience wants when you present it, but the audience is like, let them know, we will give you all the money in the world if you put 3 of those Spider-Men, all of our Spider-Men together in one movie. There's no way that Sony or Disney doesn't move heaven and earth and open up all the coffers to make that happen, because whatever they spend, whatever Toby or Andrew require to show up in that movie, they are going to make untold fortunes off of that, not just at the box office, but the trickle down all the way, man. People, you know, I only speak for myself as a midlife person. You know, there's less time in front of me than there is behind me. So we tend to be a very sentimental and nostalgic people and whatnot. And I know some people are like, it's the lowest form of entertainment to give an audience exactly what it wants and trade on their memories. But are you kidding me? Like, I don't think that's the lowest form of entertainment at all. That's the definition of entertainment. Give the people what they want. That's like written on the walls of our business. So the fact that like we could be right now on the precipice of seeing something that everyone has dreamed of seeing since they've had a third Spider-Man, since Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, you know, like there's a strong possibility that this rare occurrence is going to happen where the world at large is going to get what they want. That never happens. And I'm one of those people that's just ready for it. Now, if it don't happen for some reason, I won't be crushed. Like, you know, you give me this Sinister Six, which I think we're being set up for, I'm a happy camper. But it honestly sounds like they are pulling out all the stops and making like the ultimate fan favorite. It sounds like what they're going for in No Way Home is, you know, the moment where Captain America raises Mjolnir, they're like, what if we did a movie full of that moment? And I'm here for it. You know what it's like? I believe Spider-Man Far From Home is going to be like a bowl of Captain Crunch all berries, like where they just take out the Captain Crunch and they're like, here's what you really want, just the berry nuggets. So I'm staying alive for that. I'm staying alive for Flash, because I too can't wait to see Michael Keaton as Batman again. Michael Keaton's killing Dope Sick. You watching Dope Sick?
Yes. Oh my God.
Unbelievable.
It's so good.
So good. And he's great in it, man, because he's got to fall down the rabbit hole of addiction, and it's believable as hell. What else am I most looking forward to? Multiverse of Madness. I was a huge WandaVision fan, so I want to see that story continue in a big bad way. And what else am I most looking forward to? Those are the big ones. You know, showing people Clerks 3. I look forward to sharing my.
When are we getting that? I know. I got to cut you loose.
Hopefully, mid next year is what we're hoping for.
Dude, I was moved in such a way by Reboot in a way I wasn't expecting, and I love this sort of direction that you're taking, and I have a feeling that Clerks 3 is going to move me into just the idea of. I know you've been tweeting out some photos, and I've just been getting emotional ever since I turned 30. I just start crying at everything, but I've just been getting emotional. Yes. I don't know if that's a thing that happens, but just the direction you've been taking your films is it's really beautiful, man. And hopefully I get to talk to you for that. And you've always been so kind to me, my friend. I could talk to you. It's like talking to a friend. I could talk to you all day.
Am I going to see you when I come to Chicago? You coming?
Yeah. I'm going to be out there.
Roll up, man. We'll chit chat.
All right. Good to see you, my friend.
Excellent seeing you. Thanks.
All right. Take care, buddy.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.